Hello, everybody. It's Martin Kiernan here, and this week we're going to be talking about, something I know nothing about. Well, actually, that'd be a fairly long list, I have to say. My guest today is Jinsy Jerry, who's an Assistant Director of Nursing for Infection Prevention Control at the Mater Hospital in Dublin. And Jerry's a pioneer in robotic process automation, and I have no clue really what that is, to be absolutely honest, because I come from an era where we didn't even have email when I started in infection control. We certainly didn't have any computerized systems. It was go and look through the paper in the lab to see what the lab had grown, and maybe you'd put up a T card, and that was about it. There was, your way of detecting an outbreak was your memory, to be absolutely honest. So things have moved on somewhat. So, Jinsy, I'm delighted to speak to you about this because it's a fascinating subject and the future of infection prevention, no doubt. So, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Martin. It is an honor and privilege to be here with you. I never expected this will happen.
No, well, nobody expects anything these days, I don't think. Everything's new around the corner. So how did you get firstly interested in robotic process automation? And firstly, what is it and how does it work?
So the robotic process automation, it's a software robot that sits in a computer and then download a set of defined actions. So basically, we are telling the robot what we need to be done, and then the robot will continuously process it. So first, I never heard about it before. 2019, when I joined this job, what I have seen is the infection control nurses' workload was very heavy, and they were doing actually more administrative work. We had only a very limited number of teams, like there was only 3 infection control nurses, and they used to spend around 3 to 4 hours every day downloading the lab results, because our lab system, what we are using, is built in 1980s. And so you can't even, as you said, you can only read the screen and then download into a particular format. Then you have to edit into an Excel format. Then half of the time they have to transcribe many of the results. As you know that when you're transcribing medical records number, you can make minute errors. And then when you upload that into your patient management system, a person who is not VRE positive could become a VRE positive. So we have the risk there. So we have taken atmosphere not that risk not to happen, but I cannot guarantee that that didn't happen. Okay. So at that stage, I went for a conference. I was a speaker at a healthcare informatics society, and when I was waiting to be called my name, the first person who was talking was UiPath coordinator, that was Mark O'Connor, and he was talking about robotic process automation in other sectors. So not just in healthcare. So he was talking about passport office and guard awaiting, and it's fascinating, And then he was explaining what are the processes the robot is doing, and I said after every slide, I said, this is perfect for us. So I went to chat with him after that. And I said to him, we have a wonderful process that can be fully automated. And so chat. And then he said, are you sure? And is there anywhere it is done? So I started looking up, and nowhere in the world they have done automation of lab results processing for what the infection nurses are doing. Then we have detailed discussion. He agreed that we'll run a process mapping. That was like looking into the process, what we are currently doing. And I actually did a process mapping in the ARM computer whenever we were running the lab system. It is actually recording every step what infection nurses are doing. Then we send that report to...
That's quite a task, though, isn't it, to record every step? I mean, because I've found that everybody does things in a slightly different way. So how did you manage to standardise what people are doing? Because if you've got a few members in your team, everybody does maybe, how did you work out what the optimal method was?
Yeah, the ultimate method was the traditional method what infection control nurses were using. And they had a big list of steps to do. If you change any of the steps, the lab system wouldn't work. They cannot download the results. So it had a definite steps. And that was the beauty of the thing. The only difference was making the robot understand the lab results, because none of the microbiologists write the reports in the same way. For example,
yes.
for a VRE, you could tell like one commercial resistant enterococcus that is resistant, or then we'll say an organism, and then there will be 3 or 4 columns, and somewhere there will be an R just opposite to VRE, and somewhere it will say VRE positive. So the difficulty was to make the robot understand how a clinician or how a scientist is actually wrote the report, because we found the reporting system can be very different and different person to person. So there was the utilization of AI, basically. So we download the steps and sent it to them and asked them, and they also felt if this can be done. So 2 of their developers came, sat with infection nurses, and they have gone through each boxes. So they will be like, we will be going one sprint to next sprint. And once they have gone to the second sprint, we may be spending 2 minutes there. And they start asking what you were doing actually in that minute. So with them saying, we looked at the MR and we looked at the date of birth, we make sure that that one is correct, and looked at the organism. Is that organism resistant to something? So they recorded every bit of information. And then the process was developed. Then it was a trial system, because we have to have 0 error. And so that was the biggest part, I should say. So our IT was able to give us a testing platform. So we had copied a mock set of patients with the MRs, VRE, ESVL, and all those microorganisms that usually MDROs. And then we created a testing platform. Then when the robot was developed and won the test results and download the results, then we identified manually whether they captured everything or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the time we identified they were not able to download all the VRE results, all the CP results, because the results are actually displayed in different formats in the screen. And they used screen scraping, which is a AI technology to identify that lab results. So they had to use different natural language processing to identify what are the lab results. Then they created a complete process for us. And the next 3 months was validation. And that was a huge part of it. So the robot downloaded the results. Infection control nurses download manually that. Then they compared each result, whether they missed anything or not.
So that's just a validation period then, yeah.
Validation period. And once it was validated, still, that you need to be careful that the robot is not missing anybody. So we kind of monitored the robot all the way through for almost an year. And then satisfactorily, we'll just say that the robot is doing good. And there are a lot more the robot started doing. That was downloading was one part of it. And then in the process of that development, the COVID hit. So the first COVID cases arrived in Ireland 2020 March, and we were actually in the middle of development of that process. So the UiPath actually was quite happy to take up that responsibility of downloading the lab results for the COVID. The COVID results usually came like first one, we had only 1 test a day. Then it went to 2 tests, 3 tests, 4 times test running, and sometimes now daytime and nighttime. So, and the infection control nurses are not there in the day, like that stretch of time. So we had something called orchestrator. So he dedicated this concept time control panel. Somebody's like Martin Keenan is telling Jinsey to do it 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. So there is something called orchestrator. So the orchestrator allocates the time, what time the robot needs to run. And so that the robot can run without any conflict of like downloading the lab results. So MRSA have allocated 8 o'clock and then sometimes 11 o'clock. Then COVID will be 9, 12, 1, 3, like that. So COVID lab results were downloaded. And then what we did is writing the patient-specific notes in the patient management system. So we have in-house developed patient management system, and infusion control nurses usually put an alert in there for any of the MDRs. So like this patient is diagnosed with
and they have to do
MRs
that manually, presumably, do they?
Manually, yeah.
Yeah.
So in this one, for the robot, actually, this patient is diagnosed with, or Jinsy Jerry is diagnosed with the COVID on 19th of May. This patient needs to be admitted into a single room, isolation precautions, deep cleaning after discharge. So all the relevant information what infusion control nurses will provide to the clinical team is actually taken over by the robot.
Wow.
So they don't write the nursing notes anymore for COVID patients. We are still writing for others, and we are that is planned for the next phase development for a robot.
I mean, how did the microbiologists cope with all of this? So did they change what they were doing at all, or did they just say, well, it's fine, I can, the robots learn what I'm doing anyway, so I can just carry on the way I was? Because it's interesting when you say people report in different ways, because you wonder about the poor end user then, who gets the same thing but being reported in a number of different ways. And just did this standardize the way the end user's actually getting their report as well?
Yeah, actually, that is a nice idea. I never asked that question. What we actually trained our robot to become more intelligent, to read any pattern of results that comes out from it. But at that time, it wasn't a time to train anybody either, Martin, because that was the middle of the COVID, early start of the COVID.
Yeah, good point.
Our clinical workload was too
good point.
busy.
Yeah.
So anything to be added was an extra job to anybody. So what we did was our developers were very good. They worked very collectively with us. So nice collaboration between the two teams. And we taught our robot what we need. And exactly the same intelligence what an infusion control uses, the robot is actually using it for downloading the lab results and interpreting the lab results. We are doing a bit more work now so that this can be advanced further. So that is in the pipeline.
Okay.
So that is actually for all surgical site infections and all other lab results, the patient-specific notes for all other lab results.
Okay, I mean, so have you been able to quantify how much infection control nurse time has been freed up by this, and now what are they doing?
Yes. So every day, without COVID, that was 3 hours.
Wow.
So 3 hours is relieved back into the system. The COVID, we were able to manage without additional resources for the COVID, because the COVID lab workload was actually done well, the robot. And even the doctors and nurses in the ward got information very quickly at that time itself about the patient reporting system. So immediately when the lab results are downloaded, if we were updating the system, it would take around 7 minutes per patient.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the robot, it actually took less than a few seconds for the robot to update that system. So a huge amount of time. And also what the robot did was balancing the workload, like imbalances, like fluctuations that happened during the weekend. Monday, you'll see Monday there is more COVID results. There may be 200 patients. Some days there will be 10. And over the weekend, infection control nurses are not there on the weekend. But still, the robot is actually doing 365 days. So there is a silent infection control nurse working 24/7, 365 days, not taking any leaves.
Yeah. So
it actually, it managed workload fluctuations very well.
That makes Monday morning very busy, though, when you all turn up and they've got a whole pile of things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, are you using to look at infection rates or anything like that? Or is this just a way of filtering out the path results from an older system at the moment?
So since the robot came in, we have surveillance data. Before that, as I said, majority of them, we were looking at the lab results, taken an action. It is on the piece of paper. Never, like some people may enter the next sheet. We were not tech savvy at that time either. So it was like all of them were in the paper. We didn't have a full surveillance data. Now our infusion control nurses robot is actually doing, infection control nurses will add further comments into those one, this is a healthcare associated infection from this ward or a different hospital. So we have the surveillance data for all MDRs. That is one of the successes. Then we were able to give feedback to different wards. Look, there is a slight increase in infection rate here, or what is happening? Why there is 3 healthcare associated C. diff in that ward? Is there something new? We were even able to identify outbreak patterns even before we even felt that there is something wrong going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Alex Sunderman a few weeks ago, and they're genome sequencing everything, which is a completely different level. But at least you're not having to go down that route, and you're still able to pick up outbreaks quite early. So that's very good.
Yeah. So we identified the outbreak very early, and as soon as there was 1 or 2 cases came, and then they were in close proximity, and we would have not done this if robot was not picking up episodes that early and not efficiently.
Was there a large cost involved in this, Jincy? I was just, because you're talking about developers coming in and doing all the mapping and sitting with him working on it. I mean, were they doing it as part of a research project, or was there significant funding required to set this up?
So in the beginning, because it was the first time ever in the world, we got it as a pro bono basis from UAE Park. So Excellent. It was free of cost. And then as the service executive in IFR have taken up the RPA project. So they have, HSE have a center of excellence in RPA. Now the license is actually yearly, there is a yearly license cost.
Okay.
And that is paid by HSE.
Okay.
So kind of we are free.
You got the government to pay for it. That's even better. Yeah. Okay. I mean, because you have freed up, nursing time to do other tasks as well. So that's really impressive. I mean, there's a lot of talk about AI at the moment, isn't there, in the media? Because suddenly you discover ChatGPT, and I've done it. And I think, wow, this is absolutely amazing thing. But actually, there's concerns about it as well. So, what do you think are the pros and cons of using AI then in infection prevention and control? Because certainly I think it can streamline processes and help you point in the right direction in a much more timely manner.
Yeah. So there are pros and cons. I'm not saying there is no pros and cons. So first of all, first thing we need to identify, if we have a data protection agreement, a strong data protection agreement, then our data is safe and our patient data is safe. So before even contacting anybody, I think that is the first step we need to do, to have a data protection agreement between the two organizations, the person who is developing and then they use the hospital. So once that is there, we can rely a lot on their. The second thing, the AI can only do as much as you tell AI to do.
Yes.
So if a clinician, if I give a wrong information to AI,
ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. Yeah.
You'll get a wrong answer. So I really encourage people with a great clinical knowledge. So you have the power of clinical knowledge. You bring that clinical knowledge to the people, to the AI. So anybody who possesses excellent clinical knowledge, excellent judgment, and that person should actually sit with the AI there and collaborate with them to develop the best AI. Then the hospital have wealth of data. How many millions of lab results we have?
Oh, yeah.
We have untouched millions of labs. We have untouched millions of patients' data points. And we know, predictive algorithms. I would love to do some predictive algorithms for infection control, but probably I am not the first person to do it because it is the doctors who actually diagnose. So I think a consultant microbiologist with the interest in AI should come forward. You don't really need to know AI in this one because you are providing the clinical knowledge to the people to say, these are the steps I do. Yeah. And this is what you should look at. So the clinical knowledge for predictive algorithms would be really useful. Especially, we can prevent surgical site infections. By the time a clinician enters the patient details and history, by using predictive algorithm from our previous millions of data can actually identify if this person is at a high risk of surgical site infection, this person needs antibiotic, and just next one to say this person doesn't need antibiotic because he has a very good, chances of surviving with no surgical site infection. Or sometimes you can predict sepsis and you can predict bloodstream infection very early if you use predictive analytics. I was actually reading one of the articles where they run predictive algorithms for patients who are long-term in the hospital for UTI. And they actually predicted many of them very clearly and prevented millions of UTIs in the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to know, whether a nurse's instinct would be as good as the AI, because, many nurses will spot the sitting duck, but they won't necessarily formally act on that and think this is an elderly person at risk of UTI. Maybe they're not drinking enough and, that can have other problems. But they still don't, for some reason, make the connection because it's not a formal thing. It's just a feeling inside. Whereas if an AI model came up on the computer screen, this person is high risk, you need to make sure they're getting fluids, they may be more willing to act on that, do you think? Because it's more formalized and therefore I see something, therefore I need to do something about it. I wonder if that would be an interesting study to do, really.
Yeah, so that's the purpose of bringing AI in this one. This person have a high risk of it. Now you have a set protocols in that for that person. And even adding the symptoms, we are going on the way to electronic patient record. In that time, even when the symptoms comes up, this is give them an algorithm to say, okay, this person hit the points for a high risk of UTI. Now the step needs to be acted on. So that's the value of AI, and that's where AI should be used appropriately rather than just, okay, we did a predictive model, these mutations.
I mean, I do wonder if an AI system could be built to look at a number of different factors with regard to, say, a ward or unit, where they look at what the hand hygiene is like, and I mean, genuinely. So that may mean some sort of automated system. What the use of PPE is like, or some other mechanism. Are they isolating people appropriately, and actually predict which wards are most likely to have an outbreak? Because I could tell you, walking around my old hospital when I was working, I reckon if I wrote down on a piece of paper the 5 wards that would have a norovirus outbreak in October each year and open that envelope up in April, I'd have been pretty much right, because you know which wards are good or not. But, are there some parameters you could actually use to predict when an outbreak is likely to happen through something like a norovirus or an influenza or something like that? You know what their ventilation rate is. The future is impressive, I think.
Interestingly, you touched one of my point, and one of the projects that I'm planning to do with an AI tech group. Recently, they brought to me a mobile size device, very small one, but that is a thermal sensor, and it has artificial intelligence built in it. And their purpose was to identify whether the patients was not washing their hands when they are exiting the bathroom. And I said, no, this can actually be better used in the bedside if the healthcare workers are performing hand hygiene or not. So we are going to go ahead with them in the development process of an automation of auditing practices of healthcare workers, whether they are missing that 5 moments of hand hygiene. Till this time, there is loads of electronic tools are there, whether you wash their hands before entering to the room or not. But the difficulty was identifying whether they are completing the 5 moments of hand hygiene at the bedside, because majority of our rooms are multi-bedded based where hand hygiene is not monitored exactly. And even that machine can actually give a little warning and noise if they miss the hand hygiene opportunity. So whether you want that noise or not, it's up to your option. But I am really eager to work with that team to develop that AI-supported device. Because it is very small, a mobile phone size can be fixed in the proximity of the patient. There is no data collected in terms of person identification. So you can, and you don't, if you don't want, you can eliminate that option as well. But if somebody wants to name and shame, yes, you can collect the data.
Yeah, I wasn't. Actually, when I think about that, I wouldn't think of name and shame. What I would do is maybe once a week give every healthcare worker on a unit just their own personalised report telling them where they are with their hand hygiene, and not maybe do anything else with that, and see if that actually changed things. Because people, nothing matters unless it's personal to me. So I if that is possible to actually do that and not report to anybody else but that person. So nobody else knows. You get an overall number for the ward, but only that person knows their individual data. And have a look at that over time. Would individualised personal feedback make a difference? And I think there are some papers out there that say that might work. So, yeah, interesting.
Okay, so I'll keep that in mind for the development project. Yeah, I never thought about it. I think, we are kind of a bit skeptical at some point. Yeah. That's the way.
I mean, like you, I would have run the robotic process thing, but I would have been, are we going to miss something? And there's always a fear that something will slip through. Yet with human error, plenty of things would have slipped through, but that's us making a mistake rather than the machine doing it, which always seems a bit more worrying.
Another project what currently I'm working with the AI and infection control is on plant hygiene, where we are actually trying to bring behavioral changes and kind of embedding the 5 moments knowledge. Mm-hmm. What we don't have currently is a novelty in approaches. So this is actually totally a novel approach where how the hand hygiene training is provided. So in a simple machine, we are trying to introduce hand hygiene training, alcohol gel coverage, 5 moments of hand hygiene knowledge, and practical approach. And then their behavioral patterns, so how we can actually change. Again, working with a totally different team of AI developers, and I hope by September we'll have that in production.
Oh, that's interesting, because you're actually doing alcohol hand rub coverage, aren't you? So that's better, because at the moment we just monitor if people do anything at all. So, and most of the time people don't follow a recognised method of doing it, whether that be the 6, 5, 6 or 3 stage, because there are some shorter methods. So we just monitor incompetence probably most of the time. So this would be a nice way of doing it, to say actually how effective is hand hygiene on a routine basis. I know people have done it in research studies, but so you'll be reporting in September. I look forward to hearing about that one.
Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jinty. It's been fascinating. I've no doubt we will be talking again on this subject at some time in the future. I'm now going to go and stick my head in the bucket because it's probably a bit above my age group. But thank you very much for talking to me. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Okay, and to everybody else, we'll catch you again on the next episode of Infection Control Matters.